1. I work for a convention company, namely Anime and Gaming. I've worked for this company for the past 3 years, going from a volunteer at one con to now occasionally heading the registrations team at the bigger cons. I see and hear all kinds of stuff whilst wristbanding attendees, and some of it's utterly ridiculous. We set up the con on the Friday, then we're up early and ready to open on the Saturday morning. We're all usually shattered. We have 3 different levels of entry at this con. The first lets you in as soon as the doors open and nets you some merch. The second lets you in as soon as the doors open and nets you badges. And the third, standard, lets you in at 11:30 a.m. and is significantly cheaper than the other options. Because of these entry tiers, there's usually 2 different queue rushes and registrations get slammed. We're taking volunteers from other teams. We're being asked questions left, right, and center. Trying to control the queue, and also trying to get the attendees inside in a timely manner. The Tier 1 and 2 rush lasts about an hour. The initial standard rush can last about 2 if it's a bigger convention. At this particular con, setup had been a slog. I barely got any sleep the night before. All the staff were in the same hostel room, and a lot of them snore like freight trains. It's very difficult to get some shut-eye, but I was up bright and early with my customer service face on. Everything was going smoothly for a little bit. No massive issues until around about 10:30. This lady with a face like thunder and her kids who look mightily embarrassed march up to me. I'm wearing a staff t-shirt, so it doesn't surprise me. I'm usually able to answer people's questions, plus I handle on-the-door sales, so I see nothing out of the ordinary yet. Good morning, have you got a ticket, or can I help you in some other way?
I can't even find my tickets, and I know I downloaded them.
Oh, that's all right. This happens all the time. I can look you up on the iPad.
So are you going to let us in or not?
I paused a second, not entirely sure how to answer that. I just need to see your tickets. I can look you up if that's easier.
I don't want you to look up my tickets. I'll find them. I just need to know if you're going to let us in, or if we're going to freeze to death out here.
I can tell you the answer to that once I see your...
Here, now let us in.
She thrust her phone at me, tickets up. I do my checks that they're right for the con. It has the right number of people on it, and then the entry tier. Her tickets are standard tickets. I can't let her in for another hour. Balls. Oh, I'm so sorry, miss, but standard entry doesn't start until 11:30. If you'd like to get in early, we have an option to...
But we're here now. Why can't you let us in now? My girls have been waiting for weeks for this. We want to get in.
I understand, but standard entry begins at 11:30. We do have an option to purchase an on-the-door upgrade to get in early at £6 a person if you'd like. She doesn't take this offer kindly, and looks like she's going to start screaming at any second.
So you're not going to let us in?
I'm trying to remain patient and professional, but it's starting to get difficult. I'm tired, I have had no caffeine yet. Didn't have time for breakfast. Hell, I haven't even had a smoke yet. Ma'am, I cannot let you in on a standard ticket before the stated entry time. You can upgrade, it's £6 a person and gets you in early. I will let you in at the time your ticket allows you in at. I can't make an exception for you, otherwise I'd have to do so for everyone.
I'm not paying any more money. I've already paid for these tickets. I'm here, and you should let us in.
You pay to be let in at 11:30. I will be more than happy to let you in then. Her kids look like they're about to die of embarrassment, and the oldest of them convinces their mum to come back at 11:30. When the standard rush comes, I can see her kids in the queue. Luck had it that I got to serve them, and while she still looked like she wanted to scream and shout in my face, she stayed remarkably quiet. The rest of the day passes with few incidents, and I cannot wait until my next con to gather more entitled parent stories. 2. This was back in 2016. My ex-husband and I just moved into our new house in October of 2016. My friend Susan and her 3 girls and 2 dogs were getting evicted from their residence in November. I offered them a temporary place to stay until they found a permanent place. The kids were the same age as my kids and were in the same activities. I thought they would be there for 1 or 2 months and find a place. The first month was fine. We set chore schedules for each of our kids, and everyone was getting along. Starting month 2, Susan and her girls started to see the house as theirs, and we were an inconvenience to them. Susan was not able to find a place due to her eviction, and she quit looking for places. When my family wanted to cook dinner, take a shower, or watch TV in one of the 2 family rooms, it was an issue. They started to complain about having to do chores around the house. One of the girls, 10, was sharing a room with one of my daughters and making my daughter feel unwelcome in her own room. The final straw came when my daughter had a birthday party, and I asked them to find another place to stay for the weekend. Susan had a fit when she found out her daughter was not invited to the birthday party. My daughter did not want to invite her as she was sick of the daughter, and her friends did not like her daughter. Susan yelled at my daughter and told her that she was a spoiled brat and selfish for not inviting her. Susan also made several derogatory remarks to my daughters after this about how they need to mind their own business and quit being bratty. My ex-husband had enough. He told me they had to go and gave Susan an eviction notice of 30 days. The next 30 days was horrible. The youngest daughter kept telling my 2 daughters it was their fault they were getting kicked out of their house. Fortunately, they spent most of the time at Susan's boyfriend's house, but when they were here, it was a nightmare. She did not pack anything until moving day, so my family bagged everything in black garbage bags and boxes and put them on our front porch. We took pictures of everything, as we know her history of being vindictive. We had a family friend come over to be here as a witness just in case anything happened when she came to get her stuff. She was welcome to come in the house to make sure she had everything, but never rang the doorbell or came in the house. We thought everything was fine. 3 months later, we receive a summons in the mail that we were being sued for missing items. We couldn't believe it. She sued us over 750 pounds of missing items. There was nothing missing. We made sure of it. We wanted nothing of hers. We filed a counterclaim for damages she made to the house for more than the amount of her claim. We were hoping we could get her to drop her claim with ours, or offset her claim by ours. Day of court. She had 2 claims that day. She also sued an ex-boyfriend for 2 jet skis he was storing. He said he sold the jet skis to offset the fees for fixing them. He also unknowingly had her ex-boyfriend's stolen car at his house, and the cops showed to get the car. We tried to negotiate with her, and she said no. The judge was not impressed with her having 2 claims in one day and not being prepared. Needless to say, we won our case. Well, a month later, we received notification she appealed, and we had to go back to court over this. She asked for a continuance as she said she did not know there was a hearing. The judge was not impressed. The judge pretty much told Susan if this showed back up in her courtroom, the judgment would be the same. This time, she would also have to pay for our lawyer fees as well. After a month of messing around and a day before court, she finally signed the court documents to drop her case against us. To this day, she tells everyone how we screwed her and treated her badly. We just tried to help a family in need, and gave them shelter for several months when they didn't have anywhere else to go. I'm not sure I will do that again. 3. Happy New Year's, everyone. I remember this story about a sleepover with my cousin that I am no contact with. So to start off 2025, I want to tell you about this long, drawn-out story that I now laugh about. To get started, it was 2021. The pandemic in my area had technically ended. Me and my cousin, who we will call EC, entitled cousin, were best friends. Throughout the pandemic, I talked to her almost every day. She was pretty sad that 2020 she couldn't have a birthday party. I felt her pain, because in 2020 I turned 13 and didn't get to have the huge party my family planned. So, EC's mom had the bright idea to have a party for her daughter in 2021. Her mom has raised her as an only child because she is technically an only child biologically. Her mom did an adult adoption to EC's older sisters that EM fostered when they were 12. Those sisters were in their late 20s to mid-30s at the time. So as you can tell, she was raised mostly as an only child, but legally she's the youngest child. So, Day 1 of hell, I showed up a bit late because me and my mom had a fight about a swimsuit. It's not very important to the story, but it will give context. The swimsuit needed to be washed, according to my mom, when it really didn't need to, as it was clean. Because of the car we drove at the time, it needed to charge because EM and EC lived very far and the battery to the car almost died. The charging process took 45 minutes, and my cousin's house was 25 minutes away from the charging station. So I finally leave the charging station and head to my cousin's house. I got there and it was 8 p.m. Everyone had been there since 5 p.m., but everyone lived very close. So I entered the house, being walked in by EC's sister. She has 3 older sisters. One is in the military, the other is in college, and the oldest is pregnant, again at this time. They really don't have any purpose in the story, so I'll briefly mention them here and there. EC was mad with how late I was, which was understandable, but after explaining, she softened up a bit. My mom left, so my cousin got the goodie bags for all of us. There were 4 other girls there, and I am the oldest. My cousin was turning 12, her friends were all 12 and 13. Red flag number 1 should have been the fact that none of EC's friends were there. None of them showed up. The girls there were all EM's friends' daughters, who have met EC at least 4 times. All the girls were pleasant with EC, but they all wanted to talk to me. I'm not sure what happened earlier, but everyone was standoffish with her. She leads us to the bathroom and tells us we're all doing a face mask. All the girls were happy until EC started yapping. She grabbed her face wash and turned to one of the girls, telling her she needs to use this face wash because her face looks not the greatest. I told EC that's not very nice of you. Her mom heard this and said nothing. The girl said no because she's never used the face wash because she breaks out easily. The girl walked off to get her own face wash. Then EC targeted me, saying, "You also need to use this face wash because you're slowly starting to look like a witch with all those pimples." EM stepped in and told her to apologize. I was having a medical issue with my period that made me get bad acne. I was on my period for 2 months at that time and would have pimples a lot because of it. Then she called her friends ugly in different ways after placing their mask on. It was annoying, but we sucked it up. The rest of the night was uneventful, other than EC making a mug cake that she forced me to eat, which was annoying. We went to sleep, watching the live-action Lion King. Day 2 of hell, we had to get ready for the water park. We were pretty happy because it was going to be 100 degrees outside, so pretty hot. We had breakfast, which, for the life of me, I can't remember. I do remember there being orange juice on the table, and EC demanding for us to give it to her now. In her own words, she said, "Give me the orange juice right now. I'm the birthday girl and can do whatever I want." Her mom told her to stop being rude. We gave her the orange juice just to get her to calm down. We all got dressed, and honestly, we all looked cute for going to a water park. EC took a while in the bathroom to get ready, and when she finally left, she said all of our outfits sucked and how she's ready to change into her swimsuit at the water park. We thought she placed her clothes over her swimsuit, so we're all pretty annoyed now. So, we finally got to the water park, and for some reason all our cousins didn't show up. This is both our cousins through her mom and her cousins on her dad's side. It's weird, but that should have been red flag number 2. We waited outside the water park for it to open, which I'm glad for because within 20 minutes there were lines going down the street. We got bored waiting and started to play outside the gates of the park. We started pretending to be Karens. I was shocked that all of us liked Our Entitled Parents and Reddit videos, so it made this more fun that we got to act out our favorite Karens. EC, of course, wanted to be Karen and told us that we can't be Karen, so we picked out other Karen-type names, think Carol, Betty, etc. EC didn't like the way we played Karens and stomped off to spend time with her niece. We just kept playing because me and another girl had our phones but didn't want to drain the battery. Eventually the gates opened and EC decided that we're all good now. We're playing in the pool while her mom just chilled at the seats with her granddaughter. EC started insulting her mom for being cheap and not bringing enough money for food and making sandwiches for us. Remember, we are at a water park. Food is expensive. A slice of pizza was $5. and I wasn't that big. EC then drags us to the only water slide in the park. There's many water slides, but those are for toddlers and very small children. We get in line, and all she did was complain till we got to the top of the slide. One of the girls who was at the party was in front of EC, and when she realized she wasn't going to be the first, pushed her, which was dangerous, because the steps were small and a little wet. EC then said, "It's my birthday, I can do what I want, and I want to go first." We told her don't push on the stairs, we might get hurt. She rolled her eyes and then got on the side. We were so annoyed, but accepted it. After getting into the other pool, we decided to have a race. This pool was pretty small, and we really shouldn't have raced it. As soon as the race started, I was winning because I had long legs and arms, and I was working out. EC got behind me and didn't want me to win, which I did. She grabbed my leg, which slowed me down, and scratched me as soon as I touched the wall. She bit my leg. As soon as we got to the checkpoint, I screamed, "You bit me! You bit me! What the heck?" Everyone looked at her because why would someone do that? She said, "Well, sorry, but you should have let me win because it's my birthday." I was weirded out by both this and something else she did earlier, and instead of telling her mom, we just moved on. She made us do more laps, but I was tired and my leg hurt from the bite mark that faded and the reddish scratches that were healing on my leg. So I sat to the side till she dragged us to the biggest pool in the park. So for context, the big pool normally has a giant blow-up parkour set, but after the pandemic they got rid of it, so we just played in the pool. I'm not a strong swimmer, and I have asthma, so I wasn't swimming too much because the deep end has a giant drop from 4 feet to 6 feet to 12 feet, etc. So I wanted to save my energy to try out the diving board, and also, just in case, I end up in the deep end part of the deep end. EC got mad at me for not going to a deeper part of the deep end, and had pushed me into the deep end. I got stuck and panicked. All the girls started panicking because I told them I can't really swim. EC got mad at me for just not swimming, and thankfully a random girl who joined us, who was 14 or 15 years old, grabbed my arm and pulled me to the 4 feet part of the pool. Everyone began to scold EC because what she did was very unsafe. I'm not sure why we didn't tell EM, but we just stayed with EC. I jumped off the diving board for the first time in my life, and had fun. I was stuck for a while, but I managed to somehow swim to the shallow part of the pool. It was embarrassing that I jumped off the smallest diving board and everyone jumped from the bigger diving board, but it was safest for me. EC demanded we test who could hold their breath the longest, and because of the panicking from earlier and the intense swimming I did from the diving board, I couldn't hold my breath for that long. So I was underwater for about 20 seconds, and as soon as I lost my breath, I moved to the steps far away from everyone to see who would lift their head up next. I also didn't drop to the ground like most other girls from the party because I knew I would lose my breath quickly. So imagine my shock when EC, who won the challenge, claimed I bit her when she was underwater. It was so stupid and nobody believed her. She said, "Look, she even scratched my legs too." And she shows a faint line of nail scratches. The girl who saved me earlier said, "That's not possible because OP was standing and holding her nose underwater and not even close enough to scratch you, EC. OP moved to the stairs long ago." Due to the confrontation, she began to cry, claiming I bit her. I told one of the girls from the party to get her mom, because she then started crying. Her mom came stomping over and said, "What did you do to her?" All the girls from the party, including me, started talking at the same time, saying basically the same thing. Even the girl who helped me vouched for me. EM took the crying EC with her back to the seat area, where she cried about how this was the worst birthday ever, and how she wants everyone to go home. EM was so mad she didn't let us have our sandwiches. Thankfully, we all brought cash. Otherwise, we would have gone hungry till we got back to her house. We all bought ourselves food, and we ate. The random girl that saved me and vouched for me joined us to get food. She apologized that my mom is like that, and my sister so bratty. I explained that she isn't my mom, but my mom's cousin, and EC is my little cousin, who has been bratty in the past, but never like this. Which is true. I'm so used to her temper tantrums, but never as bad as this. Most of the girls wanted to go home, and even complaining about how they never liked her and how they only came because their parents made them. I learned a whole new side of my cousin through the girls from the party that horrified me. One girl said she's glad she's leaving tonight due to something happening the next day. One of the girls secretly texted their mom through the other girl's phone to get her from EM's house. I decided not to say anything to my parents because we were in the process of moving, and my mom was very tired and my dad was at work. As annoyed with my cousin as I was, I really wanted a cupcake that we ordered the night before from Everything But Cupcakes, and to celebrate with my cousin her birthday, no matter how cruel she was. When I went to put my phone down after eating, EM confronted me again, so I told her why EC started crying, even though we told her twice without the story changing, and EM said, "It doesn't matter what she did. You made her cry, and when she wakes up, I want you to apologize." I really didn't care at this point and went back to the pool to see EC's pregnant sister glaring at me and the girls. It made us uncomfortable, and I told the girls what happened. Once her sister left to spend time with her daughter, we all started talking about EC. As annoying as she was, we were excited to eat our cupcakes. So fast forward to leaving the park. For some reason, we can't all fit into the car, which is fine. I wanted to ride with the girls from the party because we all got close and we were having a great time together. Well, EC hopped into the car with her sister and said, "Sorry, there's no room. You're gonna ride with my mom." All the girls begged for her to ride with her mom so I could ride with them. EC ignored all the girls and pouted, saying, "It's my birthday. I can do whatever I want, and I don't want to ride with LP." So I walked to ride with EM. I turned to see EC's sister glaring at me again, so I get in the car and it's very awkward. You could cut the tension with a knife. "I'm very disappointed in you. You're the oldest of the group. You shouldn't be picking on your little cousin. You made her cry and ruined her special day. And I want to know why. Why did you make her cry? Why were you so rude on her special day? Did you know she wants everyone to leave because of you?" EM kept yapping from there. So I began to tell her everything from the night before up until the moment she started crying. Her only response was, "Well, the next time you tell me when these things happen, and you don't let it build up so much because you ruined my baby's day." We went to Everything But Cakes, and grabbed a huge stack of cupcakes and drove back to EM's house. I was confused why EM didn't bring the cupcakes, and I asked if she needed help bringing them, and she said no. Before we went inside, EM grabbed my shoulder and said, "I want you to be nice to EC no matter what. If she does something you don't like, you come to me." All the girls showered in the time it took for us to get the cupcakes and come back. I couldn't shower because the painter people came in to paint with us. We made this beautiful nighttime forest painting. I got creative and made stars, threw paint splatters, and when all the girls saw what I did, they complimented me on the painting and even copied a little. EC said that my painting looked ugly, but I really didn't care because I gave her a compliment on hers for making giant trees that gave a fluffy leaf texture. She said, "I know it looks good because it looks better than your stupid trees." When I messed up a little, EC mocked me, even when I fixed it. The painter people left after we all finished our painting, so we just waited for dinner. We all started a random movie and played with EC's niece while me and EC started playing Minecraft together. I decided to get petty revenge on her by killing her pet axolotl while we were in creative mode. She started screaming at me for killing her axolotl and almost started crying. EM glared at me, so I decided to give her back her axolotl by spamming it until the server crashed. She screamed, "You ruined my birthday! You're the worst cousin ever!" I really didn't care, though. EC was passive-aggressive the rest of the evening towards me, and even tried to make it so I can't play or hang out with her niece, who was about 3 years old. She set up her birthday gift from her sister, which was slime. She gave me the ugliest color from the pack, because I didn't deserve anything pretty. She gave me the color gray. I didn't care, because it's slime, and once it dries up, I'm going to toss it. So fast forward, we had more pizza, and everyone wanted to watch Monsters University. EC all of a sudden has a problem with that movie, and says she wants to watch High School Musical The Show. Nobody wanted to watch a show, because we won't finish it before the sleepover ends. We all agreed to compromise by watching High School Musical movies. EC refused to compromise and demanded that we watch High School Musical the show. Or some other show. She made such a commotion that EM came out of her room to figure out what's going on. EM said we can take turns by watching whatever EC wants first, then we could watch something else after. We all explained that we only want to watch movies and no shows, but EM refused to listen and turned on a random show EC wanted to watch. Which plot twist, she turned on her iPad and played Roblox the whole time, not even paying attention to the show she turned on. We were so fed up with her at the time, the girl with the phone couldn't leave sadly, but texted me saying how much she hates it here and wants to go home. Once it was finally our turn to pick the movie, we turned on Monsters University. EC announced she was going to make popcorn and grabbed all our popcorn from the goodie bags. Even though some of us protested, it didn't matter to her, so we let it go. My bag was done first, and she said to me, "Hey LP, catch this." I told her no, for starters, that's a burning hot bag of liquid butter and hot fresh cooked popcorn that will definitely burn me. Not to mention, there was steam coming off the bag and EC had to pinch the bag to not burn herself. She said, "I don't care, catch it." She tossed the bag of hot popcorn and it burned me. My hand turned red from the burn, but a chunk of butter splashed on my thumb, burning it the worst. I also couldn't move out of the way without messing up the beds and the princess tent behind the bed. I screamed in pain. All the girls ran to me to see how bad the burn is. EM ran in to see why I was screaming. I, in fact, did cry a little while everyone was checking on me. EC stood in the back, arms crossed, glaring at me for getting attention. I had a first-degree burn on my hand, but my thumb looked like a combination of first- and second-degree burn. No blisters, but coming close to blistering, it was painful. I ran my hand under cold water, got an ice pack. EM told EC to apologize to me, and she gave me a sarcastic apology and rolled her eyes at me. EM laughed and didn't do much in this situation. I had to spend the night with an ice pack while all the girls gave EC the silent treatment and checked up on me. By the next day, it felt like an evacuation when the girls' mom came to the door, and they all got their belongings and basically ran to leave. I, unfortunately, was the last one there. My mom was grabbing the last of our stuff from the old house before she got me. I forgot to mention earlier, on day one, my cousin gave me this pretty choker. It was all black with a really pretty pendant. When my mom got there, EC made me take off the choker and gave me this old orange one that had rust on the side. It had a tag with a paw print on it. Within a month, the choker broke on me, out of nowhere, and the pendant fell as well. Before we left, EM told my mom about how I'm very mean and how I treated her child so poorly. I was so glad to leave, but then had to explain what happened to my mom, then my dad once I got home. I didn't mention the burning incident because I would be starting a war in the family if I mentioned all that had happened. You should definitely have told them. Anyways, I don't talk to EC. She doesn't talk to me either. Also, none of my cousins like her. I often catch family members talking crap about her and her mom. Almost all the cousins that are Gen Z and under talk the most crap about her, and everyone avoids her. 4. So a few years ago, I moved into a rental. There was a rental crisis going on at the time, and it was the only property I was approved for out of the hundreds I applied for. It was in a great location near my work, and was a really nice house. I was super thrilled. The real estate passed on an email from the landlord, basically welcoming me to the house. Here is the best local cafe. Here is how the dishwasher works. Oh, and by the way, the neighbor is notorious for calling the council. Didn't think much about this until a few months into the lease. I awoke one morning to a parking fine on my car's windshield. I was parked in the driveway, but overhanging past the fence line about 1 meter. I was angry and was confused as to why the local council was patrolling an outer suburb to issue parking fines, until I remembered the email. So I was like, okay, my neighbor has called the council because I was parked 1 meter past the fence line. For some clarity, this is a share house I was living in, 3 people sharing one driveway that barely fits 2 cars, and given the street is lined both sides with townhouses and apartments, street parking is hard to come by. My neighbor next door, we are both in detached houses with a yard, has a trailer parked on the street in front of her house, centered so it takes up 2 parking spaces. This trailer is completely rusted out, flat tires, you name it, but registered, and thus legal to leave on the street for as long as it is registered. I checked on Google Street View and confirmed with other neighbors, and the trailer has been there for at least 25 years. So TLDR, my neighbor is paying $150 a year to register her broken trailer, just so no one will park in front of her house on a busy street, while also calling the council on anyone else that parks even slightly out of place. Another night, I had to hang some clothesline on my back deck, so I set up a portable work light, one of those tripod ones you would use to paint a wall. It so happened that the light was pointed into her backyard. Well, you guess it. A few days later, I get a letter in the mailbox from the local council saying a neighbor had reported me for a light pollution. I ring the council and they assure me that it's just a formal letter saying someone has made a complaint, and that if what I said was true, I should just ignore it. The next day, the real estate ring me up. They explained to me that despite the landlord instructing me to ignore the neighbor's complaints, they just wanted to let me know that they were receiving so very many of them. Turns out every single time I would have a visitor, even if it was just a relative dropping by for 5 minutes in the middle of the day, she was immediately on the phone to the real estate reporting me for having guests and complaining. She would send them weekly updates on the length of the lawn. She would email them if I forgot to take my bins out. At this point, I went and confronted her, asking her what her problem was. Things quickly got heated and she started screaming at me, saying my voice is too loud and I am being a nuisance. Then the legal crap began. About 1.5 years ago, I came home to a statement of calm. My neighbor was suing me for costs, damages, and seeking a permanent injunction to prevent me or anyone else in the house from making any noise, smoke, or light whatsoever. I would later find out that in the 10 months she had filed over 160 noise complaints to the police. We are talking 2 p.m. on a Sunday for playing my car radio while washing it in my yard, 6 p.m. on a Tuesday for playing an acoustic guitar on the front porch. The police even stated in one of the reports that they have never detected noise, and that they have deemed her to be a vexatious complainer. It would also be noted that in those 10 months, I had never once had any interactions with the police. 160 complaints, and not once had the police even done so much as issued me a warning. One night in winter, my roommate put 2 logs in a designated fire pit in the front yard and sat around it with his friend. In the lawsuit, she described this as lighting a bonfire on the front grass, and demanded that I replace all the curtains in her entire house due to the damage and the smoke caused them. She is claiming damage from inhaling cigarette smoke. We don't even smoke. She is legit taking me to court to try to ban me from having guests and being able to smoke a cigarette in my own yards. So after spending thousands of dollars to retain a lawyer, we go to mediation, where she demands that I am to make no noise whatsoever after 7 p.m. 7 days a week. I say this is ridiculous. After 7 hours in mediation, I make it very clear that her demands are absolutely insane, and she has no leg to fall on in regards to her complaint regarding smoke and light. I also explain that it's a share house, and that if she has issue with my roommate, she needs to take it up with them and not sue me for their behavior. She changes tactics and claims the main issue is my voice being loud. Eventually we settle. She agrees to drop the lawsuit. I agree to limit my speaking outside after 10 p.m. We swap numbers. Oh God, no. Almost immediately, she starts harassing me through text. Yep, 7 p.m. and I'm inside cooking dinner in the kitchen, talking to my roommate, and she's texting me, telling me to be quiet. Again, we're in separate, detached houses. She basically ignores the mediation and starts harassing us for making reasonable and expected levels of noise at all hours of the day or night. Can't have people around. She called the cops on me for having a phone call with my mother on the back deck on Mother's Day. I block her number. Yay! Understanding that there is no compromising with crazy. One Saturday night, we have a few guests around. I'm sitting in my lounge room watching TV. I notice there are a few police standing on the footpath, shining torches into my yard. I go outside to see if everything is all right. The police explain that they're here about a noise complaint, but they're literally standing on the footpath and cannot detect any unreasonable noise. They look extremely frustrated. At this moment, the neighbor comes outside and starts screaming at the police, telling them to do their jobs and arrest me for being a nuisance. The cops roll their eyes and go over to confront her. I go back inside. A year goes by, another lawsuit, this time in the district court. This time I am fighting it. There will be no mediation, there will be no compromising. I have gone through the dates she's indicated on the lawsuit. I swear to God, one of the nights is because I was playing a game of Uno in my bedroom with 2 others between 6 p.m. and 9 p.m. on Saturday night. Hellfreezer's note, whatever you do in this case, make sure that she has to end up paying your costs. 5. Hello everybody. How was your Valentine's Day? Good? Great? Awesome. I really wish I could have used any of those adjectives to describe mine, but here we are. I'll keep it short, sweet, and to the point. After a few weeks of talking to this guy I met on Hinge, we arranged our first date. I was off yesterday, so was he, so we figured rather than risk the insanity that is Valentine's Day dinner at our local restaurants, we would make it a lunch date instead. We picked a little local seafood place that usually has some fantastic lunch specials. We decided we would meet up around 2, and at 1:45, I would find myself sitting in their lobby waiting for him to show up. I asked him what he's driving. He tells me a blue Hyundai Sonata, and I sit there waiting and looking out the window to see his car when it pulls up. About 5 minutes after 2, and here comes the car. It pulls in right across from mine, and when the guy gets out, I realize he looks nothing like his picture. This good-looking Hispanic gentleman in the picture was a far cry from the heavy-set Caucasian male with the receding hairline, and Jeffrey Dahmer's reading glasses slowly approaching the restaurant. I was worried for a second there. I don't immediately jump to conclusions. I figured the Sonata is a pretty popular car, and that shade of blue is a shade I see quite frequently, so maybe it's just a coincidence. That thought immediately leaves my head when the man walks into the door and spots me. He calls me by my name and waves to me excitedly, and I just sit there blinking and saying, he apologizes for being late, and I finally hit him with both barrels and tell him that he looks way different from the picture he was using on his profile. He told me it's an older picture, back from when he was in college, and obsessed with Jersey Shore, and apparently also was Hispanic. This comment immediately tells me that he is also lying about his age. If I had to make an educated guess, this supposedly 20-something guy in the picture was actually in his late 40s to early 50s and of Dutch descent. I stand up, put my hands up, and tell him we weren't going to have a date because now that I met him in person for the first time, I realize he's been lying to me. Also thinks you're stupid enough to fall for that. I get my car, drive away, and I park at the first big box store parking lot I can. I'm sitting in my car absolutely seething with rage over the realization that I've been catfished. I pull up my phone, and when I pull up Hinge, I'm immediately met with some nasty messages from him, where he's using choice language and calling me a tease. You don't have to guess too hard, I blocked him. Thankfully, I didn't give him any information he could use to find out anything else other than what I told him. As far as he knew, I work in sales, live just outside of the city, and really like sci-fi movies. I gave myself a little bit of time to breathe and made my way back home. I'm not too far away from where I live when suddenly I'm jilted behind the driver's seat and I hear a loud smashing noise. For a moment, everything else is in slow motion. When the ringing in my ears stopped, I realize I'm not bleeding. I have use of my arms and legs, and despite the fact that I'm entirely freaked out, I'm not injured. I get out of my car, I walk around to the back and realize it's totaled. My trunk is now a part of my back seat, and my car is now a future insurance claim. I turn to the driver of the other vehicle. He's driving one of those diesel-fueled Dodge trucks with the quadruple back wheels. Other than a broken front grille and a couple of smashed headlights, his vehicle is absolutely fine. Still running, not leaking anything, not even smoking from underneath the hood. This guy gets out of the truck and starts berating me for being a stupid woman driver. He puts on his infamous red ball cap before reaching down into that bag that screams intelligence, and begins screaming stupid "see you next Tuesday" in my face until one of the other drivers who saw the whole thing happens to get out of their vehicle and stands between us. He's trying his best to calm this idiot down and stops him when he tries to get back behind the wheel of his truck to leave the scene of the accident. After what seemed like an eternity goes by, local law enforcement ends up on the scene and we reiterate what happened. He tries to say I brake checked him. If you don't know what it is, it's when you decide to repeatedly hit your brakes when you've got a driver behind you in order to make them angry or get them to pass you. All I had to do was point up at the obvious traffic light and tell the officer the light was red. The built-in camera would confirm this. This is when the driver who got out of his vehicle chimed in that he was behind the driver with enough distance to see that it looked like he was recording a TikTok while driving when he looked up and suddenly hit his brakes. The officer would not only take his accusation quite seriously, but upon looking into the driver's record, he would find out this guy was just barely 18 years old, had his license for less than a year, and was already looking at the possibility of revocation if he'd been pulled over one more time. It took me some doing, but eventually he was able to get this kid to show him his phone, and sure enough, TikTok was still pulled up with the recorded video sitting in limbo waiting to be uploaded. I'll be taking him to court, so now here I am, after spending the entire morning on the phone with my insurance company filing a claim, looking around on Facebook Marketplace, trying to find an affordable beater car, just so I can get from point A to point B, and still reeling from being rear-ended at a stoplight. I took the officer's advice and went to hospital, and now I have a lovely neck brace as an accessory to go with every outfit for the next 6 to 8 weeks, because of whiplash. Easily the worst Valentine's Day I have had in a long time. I hope you all fared better, because this sucks. I think I'll just stay in and finally get around to watching Castlevania on Netflix next year. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Idiots in the Wild 191. And thank you very much to everyone who allowed me to use their stories in this video. If you'd like to support the channel, you can do that by supporting me on Patreon, which is linked in the description. $1 or a few dollars a month even helps a great deal. You can also buy yourself some merchandise, which is also linked in the description. And if you feel so inclined, on a one-off basis, you can leave a tip for this or any other video by clicking on the heart with a $sign underneath the video. Okay, that's me done pimping myself out. Let's see, I don't think we've any other business today. I don't believe there's any shout-outs. So I better check, but I don't think there's any. No, okay, I cleared all out, that's good. So let's move on to Hellfreezer's question of the day. And this one comes from our friend Newcomb via the Discord. And should the UK authorities reevaluate the Jack the Ripper case to take into account the DNA results from a shawl of one of the victims matching a descendant of a suspect at the time? Now, I have my own feelings on this, which we'll get to in a moment, but do let me know what you think in a comment below. Personally speaking, while it probably wouldn't hurt to take a look at it, I don't think there's any way to know for sure. The fact of the matter is, every able-bodied man in and around the area at the time either is, was, or has been a suspect at one point or another. You had your initial suspects at the time, but in the years that have followed, people have cast a critical eye over various gentlemen, and some suspects are better than others, but I don't think we're ever going to know who Jack the Ripper was for sure. It will have to remain a mystery. And before we go, let's take a look at the answer of the day in a previous video. And this one comes from Idiots in the Wild 190, and it was about, do you have a use for AI, artificial intelligentsia, or stuff? Because I have uses for it, like the image generation and all, but messing about with LLMs and such, no, it's fun to mess about with, but I don't really have a practical use. My dream of having a personal Jarvis will have to wait a few years. Voiced by Stephen Fry, of course. So I suppose technically that would make it a Jeeves. Very good, sir. Today's answer comes from Tara E. McQueen. I am a cinema studies master's student and took a class about generative AI, Gen AI, last term. My professor referred to Gen AI as a solution to a problem that doesn't exist, which I think is a really solid summary of the general application of it. I also think it's important to talk about the actual artificial intelligence as a separate entity from Gen AI, since the only thing they have in common is the use of LLMs, really. Well, Hellfreezer's no, some of the underlying architecture, definitely. And none of that touches on the extreme environmental consequences Gen AI is having, like the fact that it's speeding up global warming exponentially. Thank you very much for your answer, Tara E. McQueen. The only thing I would add there is it might be speeding up global warming, but I think it is also encouraging people to focus more on finding solutions of renewable energy. Solar power, wind farms, all that good stuff. Stuff we should have been doing decades ago. Well, we were doing it decades ago, but not to the degree that we're starting to embrace it now. Presumably because power companies have been slow to adapt to relying on fossil fuels. I mean, if you rely on fossil fuels, you go the way of the dinosaurs. Anyway, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.